folks know that you're here hanging out with us as well. Shoot the Breeze topic number one says, who defines empire? This is interesting. Side note, I think I might have mentioned this last week, but a young lady, it seems, on X, hopefully the young lady, she said something along the lines of, I'm going to paraphrase heavily here. She said something along the lines of, if black folks think that we're just, I want to get this right. If the black folks think we're just going to lay up and, or black folks think that she is just going to lay up and blow black men under the idea of Pan-Africanism, that she'll prefer to stay under empire. So when I saw this prompt come up, it took me back to that. Did anyone else happen to see that post on Twitter? I think I reposted it.
I saw it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, just quickly, what were your thoughts on that, Black Steel?
She was a feminist, and feminists believe the primary contradiction in society is between men and women, right? So she was basically saying that, black men being in control would be worse than white men being in control somehow. But her whole thing is, fight the patriarchy, no matter if it's male or female. But she's missing over the fact that black men don't have a patriarchy.
Absolutely. What's interesting, she said she'd rather stay up under empire. That's so all the things she said she wouldn't do under black men, she'll gladly do under empire. That's that's cold blooded. But anyway, Trigger Happy saw it. He says, "Oh, I know the exact convo you're talking about." Shout out to Daily Affirmation by Pauline, by the way. He goes on to say, Trigger does, those feminists were slandering Lumumba on purpose. They reopened their case and lied on him. Feminists counterintelligence, in my opinion. I appreciate that. Also, shout out to KW7, who's out there in the chat with us tonight. I appreciate you. Like I said, my Shoot the Breeze topic number one. Let me get this right. Shoot the Breeze topic number one. Who defines empire? It came with this link. You guys can see on my screen. It's a short video. We'll play it. Oh boy, Frank Zano again. We'll play it and then we'll discuss.
Africa has ever had one empire. Ask the person to define empire. What is an empire? That will settle its region, its continent. Okay? That is an empire. And it has kingdoms. When they say kingdom, it's two.
So I had to pause it. My computer did something. Strange once again. Let me reshare it because I lost audio for some reason. Let me share it again. Let me share my screen. So we'll do this again. Well, I'll try. I'll play it twice. I'll play it from where it stopped for me, and then I'll play it again one time through.
Had dominion in the Middle East and had dominion in America. The French Empire had dominion in West Africa, had dominion in Asia and other places. The Dutch Empire under King Leopold had a dominion in the Congo. The king has a dominion, so it's a kingdom. So what is an empire? An empire is an establishment, administrative, of a culture, a society, but it has been able to go outside its geography and conquer a place and leave footprints, language, religion, education, lifestyle. So please, the East African Empire you're talking about, point a place outside East Africa where it left its footprints. The next time somebody said Africa has ever had one empire, ask the person to define empire. What is an empire? That will settle this for you. Why do they call them empire? An empire has to have footprints outside its region, its continent. Okay? That is an empire. And it has kingdoms. When they say kingdom, it's two words put together. The king has dominion, which means the king of the UK or the English had dominion in Africa, had dominion in Asia, had dominion in the Middle East, and had dominion in America. The French Empire had dominion in West Africa, had dominion in Asia, and other places. The Dutch Empire under King Leopold had a dominion in the Congo. The king has a dominion, so it's a kingdom. So what is an empire? An empire is an establishment, administrative, of a culture, a society, but it has been able to go outside its geography and conquer the place and leave footprints, language, religion, education, lifestyle. So please, the East African Empire you're talking about, point a place outside East Africa where it left its footprints. And next time somebody says,
all right, I think we get the gist of what Frank Zanu is talking about. Let's look at a couple of comments here. Someone said, Minnesota doesn't count. Someone else says, I'm learning a lot from this man. He's not criticizing. He's shedding light. Someone else says, I think Africa had just powerful tribal groups, but none matured to become empire. So someone says, thank you for the education, good sir. Another person says, thanks, Zanu, for very clear and detailed information. Someone else glazes him and says, Zanu is crazy smart. So let's talk about it. What is an empire and who defines it? Before we do that, though, let's welcome in our brother Buana this week. Buana, how are you?
Shout out to you, Koku. Can everybody hear me? Because this earphone I have is kind of janky. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah,
loud and clear.
Great.
Oh, shout out to everyone. I hope everyone is safe and healthy. You know, I'm just getting in, so I'm here.
Buana, did you happen to see that video that I just played?
I saw this last week. And
Okay.
for my opinions on this is, for anyone, you know, just go on AI mode on your phone. So, and then type in the word empire, and it'll explain what an empire is. There is two types of empires. One empire is a contiguous empire, which you don't necessarily have to go outside of the borders of your continent. If anyone heard of this person called Genghis Khan, Genghis Khan ruled the largest empire besides the British. He is known for that. And his empire extended from the most eastern part of Asia almost into the UK. So it extended outside of his region itself. You know, so that's what. So you don't have to be. You can have a contiguous empire where you don't have to go outside of the continent itself. Then you could have empires like the British, where the empire extend outside of the continent, where you find the British in India and Africa and all over the place. He doesn't describe that. He just describes an empire based off his situation, where France came and colonized the Benin. And the crazy thing about it is Benin had an empire as well. And this guy is from Benin. Benin had an African empire that extended outside of the borders of the everything he is defining. Just type in AI mode and type in empire. Then after that, type in whether Africans had an empire. And one of the empires they had, it was the Benin Empire. And this person is from Benin. You have to be careful with sometimes the internet sometimes, because this guy, he speaks very well and he's articulate. But it's important that people do their own research, because there are things that he is not he is reframing the definition of what empire is, or he is not detailed in explaining what an empire is. And when you don't do that, you would think only Europeans had empires and Africans did not. When that is just not true. It's not true. So yeah, you have to be careful with the internet. This brother is, I think he is a journalist. I don't know what his background. I think it's in journalism. But he is speaking as an authority on what empires are, and he seems to be articulate until you do your research to find out it's just partly not true. One of the largest empires that's ever came around was the Mongol Empire, run by Genghis Khan, and he had a dynasty of people. He almost took over the whole of Europe, and it was still on the continent of Europe itself, or Asia itself, because Asia is connected to Europe and all these other parts. But how this guy reframes, he said, well, you have to be outside. It's just ridiculous. And I would just tell the people to just do your research. But I'm going to take a break for 5 minutes. Coco, I'll be back.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Do your thing. I appreciate how you set that up. Jacadero, what say you? He's talking about the East. He's talking about East Africa. Interestingly enough, what are your thoughts on what Frank Zanu had to say?
This guy, man, I've been seeing this guy all through third quarter, fourth quarter, 2025, and then now in 2026, it seems like the internet cannot let go of him. He's had controversial takes from what I've seen. I don't know where to start with this guy. He seems like he wants to just be a contrarian, just to be a contrarian, because he knows that gets views. I wouldn't be surprised if he has a whole entire management that's pushing him. And okay, that's fine. All right, so who defines an empire? And his question of has Africa ever had an empire, especially existing outside of the continent of Africa? If I can share my screen here, let's take a look. Give me a moment. And let's see what is an empire? And it's a large-scale political system or state that exerts dominant and often coercive control over diverse, independent, and peripheral territories and peoples. All right, cool. So we can go to my first example to answer his question is here in the United States, and it is the Otunji African village in South Carolina. This is a Yoruba empire that exists in the United States. It still exists. You guys can still visit it. It's near Seabrook, South Carolina is what I'm saying. I've had a personal friend go and visit, send back photos and videos of this village. So, that's just one example. The other example is somebody already said it in the chat, but Minnesota, they say that. I think they say this more as an insult and to be antagonistic towards the Somali community of Minnesota. But the flag, the modern flag of the Minnesota state flag, there was pushback when it was first revealed because it resembled a lot of not the Somali national flag, but Somali has states within their country, and one of their Somali state flags resembles almost identically to the modern Minnesota state flag. So the second example might not serve its purpose to answer his question, but the first one, if he wants to talk about empires, the Yoruba tribe has itself a large empire that still exists today, and it still has a place in the United States that, again, you can go and visit. I'm not sure on where this guy is coming from. The stuff that I've heard him say in the past, it just sounds like he has an issue. And it sounds like he has an issue with being African. I would be willing to go as far and say it maybe, just maybe, this guy had such a hard time getting citizenship. I don't know if he lives in America or lives in the UK, but it just sounds like with his Benin passport, it gave him so much of a headache to try to get inside these countries try to get a visa. And so he's blamed it on just being African. And so now the rest of us have to suffer. I think they say, woe is me. He is the personification of woe is me. The things that I've seen from him. And if I had a chance to talk to him, I'd just be like, what's up, man? Just because your visa was denied for applications on all these different Western countries, that doesn't mean that you need to hate where you come from. You can't take that back. You can't take back your parents' meeting and your dad, bending over your mom in that 1987 Pigot and having you. That's not our fault.
Yeah, I can hear your frustration there, Jackadero. Let's welcome in our brother, Real Black Gentleman. RBG, how are you this week?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I came in. I didn't see the whole video, but I know a little bit about the Zenu dude. Empire. I mean, there's Mali Empire. Egypt was an empire. I mean, empire is a state of when it's something. If we're going to say empire, to me, when I think about a term that I'm uncertain of, I think about terms that are related to the term. If something is empirical, it's basically it's a fact, like that's self-evident, right? It's a certain state of being that persists. That's the thing about an empire. It has a persistent character about its internal operation that allows it to just self-perpetuate. It doesn't have to be big. You can have small empires relatively. I don't know how big the Benin Empire was, but if it's an empire, it's the nature of a state that is firm and that perpetuates over a period of time, on dynastic time scales, where it's just, no matter however the rulership changes, the whole state apparatus in, the predictability of succession remains the same. It's a state of being. I mean, it's that's the thing with someone. I guess suppose there's a difference between a king and an emperor, because I mean emperors have succession too, but a monarchy doesn't really have the same weight that of state self-perpetuation that I'm trying to say that just any old classic monarchy does. Monarchies can be empires. The British monarchy, had the British Empire. I mean, it's like it's like people say America's an empire by again its state of self-perpetuation on itself. It doesn't crumble. The borders are incredibly tight. It's like it's a self-perpetuating machine. It's the beast, right? So there's Mali. Mali was an empire. It doesn't make it. See, like someone has said he's a contrarian, and I'm glad that they said that, because that's kind of like what it seems like. He'll make something very simple, and then he'll go out of his way to to try to make a point, to try to add on to his whole diction is, well, you see, and if you pay attention, he does a lot of his whole cadence and voice seems a lot like he's trying to draw attention to something else besides what it's an empire. There's countries, there's nations, what I'm saying, there's little states, there's what I'm saying, and there's what I'm saying, empires, what I'm saying. It's different, what I'm saying. It's not that hard if you understand what empire and empiricism and what's empirical, and it's a state of being that persists. That's all. It's real simple.
Appreciate that, RBG. In the chat, couple of comments happen here. Trick Happy says, whatever definition we set about something tells us exactly the orientation we have succumbed to. It's exactly why we have to reorient that training, and especially in our language. He goes on to say the fault lines of this debate of what empire is definitely is an issue of language too. In African languages, we may have something different compared to the definition of empire in English. He says, ultimately, Zanu just wants to deliberately belittle African history and African power. He wants to say they had not impact in spite of African power in Asia and Europe. They had no impact in spite of African power in Asia and Europe. Lastly, Trigger says Comgiverse has also established that there was African presence in the Americas as well. Zano is just a worse Soel. KW Don 7 says Frank Zano is problematic at best. Shout out to Brother Bakari, who's out in the chat, says peace and Black African power, Black African family. Shout out to Brother Bakari. Trigger says here, ultimately, if Black people had presence in all continents, I guess, empire building will always involve Black people in all continents and regions as well, not limited to just Africa, but originating from Africa. So good comments in the chat, guys. Keep the comments rolling. I will highlight them here on the screen. Why can't I find the original prompt? That's interesting. But with that said, man, Black Steel, what say you? Who defines empire? And do you agree with what Buana defined as the definitions of empire, Black Steel?
Well, I more or less agree with what Born is saying, and everybody else has said. This Zanu dude, every time I hear him talk, he's really coming across as counterintelligence to me. Because first of all, who gave him a microphone? Who gave him a platform? I mean, I don't recall hearing about this person. He shows up one day and he starts giving these definitive definitions and then wants to show up and show how Black people are somehow not meeting his standard. Like, for example, when he defined empire, right? He added something on there that's not on the definition of empire. He added across continents, right? Like, in order to be an empire, you got to be on more than one continent. First of all, who defines a continent? First of all. Second of all, who said that? Because when I look at the definition of empire, I got, everybody has a computer in their hand nowadays. You can just look it up. It says an extensive group of states or countries under a single supreme authority, especially, so there's nothing about it has to be a global empire. Empires can be regional. I want to mention the empire of the Mongols. But even one of the largest empires in the Americas, the Inca. The Inca were located in the Andes Mountains of South America. So by his definition of empire, right, he just excluded every non-white group of people, as if the Europeans have it best, and they've created it, they defined it. So we have to go by their definitions of things, and even by their definition, even if you were to take the European definition of things, African empires were existed. He mentioned, real Black gentleman mentioned Kemet, right? Kemet was probably one of the first global empires. They controlled most of North Africa, all the way into the Levant. So what are we talking about here? This guy is just running his mouth. But who is he? I believe personally, this man is set up to be some sort of counterintelligence agent. The powers that be understand they can't stop the flow of information, so they pollute it, right? So now they have you questioning what's real and what's not real, what's true and what's not true. You send this guy, he has he has an accent, he looks official, but he only sounds smart to stupid people. Because like everyone on this panel has said, even by his definition, there were African empires, right? But who is he to define empire? He pulled a definition out of his ass, and now he's measuring stuff by his own shitty definitions of things. It's really quite ridiculous. This man has been given a platform, and I'm wondering why. Because I've heard him other things. He is literally going against every movement towards unity of African people. He has a problem with it. He has a problem with it. He attacks our history. He attacks our organization. I don't know what else he could be considered other than an agent and a counterintelligence officer.
I'm telling you, it's because his visa was rejected for whatever country that he's got citizenship in now.
Funny enough, I was talking to Brother Bakari. I think it was earlier today. I definitely spoke to him earlier today, but I think the conversation came up earlier today of, you know, we got to get to a point where, like Black Steel kind of alluded to, when we see these people suddenly arise, like, I didn't know who this guy was until I think Jacador mentioned like the second quarter of 2025. I'm sorry, the last quarter of 2025. You know, and all of a sudden he's on all these different platforms. Black Steel made mention of who gives him a mic. We have another prompt coming up next week, I think, on that. Who keeps giving this guy a mic? And I gotta agree with Black Steel. This guy has to have been pushed out there. And here's the thing about being pushed out there. You don't have to be groomed necessarily to get pushed out there. You just have to be an idiot who's just talking a bunch of nonsense that's in our case, anti-Black, anti-Pan-African, and they will push you out there. They'll have you out there saying some of the most silliest things. Because I saw this video last week and I said, wait a minute, what does he mean? We didn't have empires. And I think it goes to a comment that Trigger mentioned earlier. I don't think I read it, but or maybe I did. But he basically was trying to say Africans not having empire is a code word. And this is Trigger Happy's words, by the way. It's a code word for African people not having civilization. So, which goes along with some of the other things you've seen him talk about. He acts like African folks was just nothing, just mindless entities on the continent, just ripe for the picking. I have to echo KW Don's words. He says this guy's problematic at best. I Can Fire is in the chat. He says, what about Genghis Khan? He didn't cross any ocean. Yeah, Bonner touched on that. Bonner was the first person to speak on this, and he touched exactly on Genghis Khan. Lastly, KW7 says Zanu is a coon. Is any last thoughts from any of the panel members on?
I do. The thing about this dude I don't like is his name, right? When I think Zanu, I think ZANU PF, the Zimbabwe African National Union. That's the only ZANU I recognize. You know what I'm saying? I don't recognize this dude. I don't know why he has. It's like he's bad sauce, man. He's bad fish. You know what I'm saying? He's bad fish. Everything about him is off kiltered, man. It like you know what I'm saying? Just, you know, however he keeps getting like amped up. Yeah, he ain't saying nothing. He's not PLO Lumumba. He's not even close. That's all I got to say.
Well said there, RBG. If there's no other thoughts, Brother McCartney chat says the Ottoman Turks didn't cross waters. Yeah, there's so many examples, right? I don't know what this guy Frank is talking about. But you know, if there's no other last thoughts here, let's move on to Shooter Breeze topic number 2, man. Who defines empire as wild? Shooter Breeze topic number 2.